Hi students, I hope you will be okay and fine, and your parents, your dear ones would also be fine during this span of pandemic. May Allah bless the humanity. Ameen. In these online classes, I have decided to record a brief lecture on important topics which I think are more important from examination point of view. So today I have skipped first two lessons and I am taking the topic to discuss the state. State is a term that has derived from Roman and Greeks. In Roman, statue, status, republica, these were the words when which they reached into English, they became state. And state is an abstract. State is an idea which is in the minds of the people and we can describe it, we cannot give it any concrete shape. Its example I would like to put like just a truth. Truth is abstract, but we cannot convert truth into a concrete object to make the people understand. So state is an idea, state is a theme, state is a concept which we keep in our minds. As far as concerns the definition of the state, theorists have offered wide variety of definitions, but today I have selected only two. H.J. Lasky defines state a territorial society divided into government and subjects claiming within its allocated physical area supremacy over all other institutions. Woodrow Wilson defines state as people organized for law within a definite territory. So when we analyze these two definitions, we find that state consists of four major elements. Number one, states are tied to territory. That means territory, area. So sovereign or state are absolute ruler over the territory. State means the government or the ruler that rules the people living within the territory. Then the state and territory as a clear defined borders. State defends and controls its territory within those borders. It is recognized by other countries through diplomatic recognition, means relationships, passports, treaties, etc. Then comes state have bureaucracies staffed by state's own personnel. A state as a national bureaucracy staffed by government personnel. Number one, legislative assembly that makes the law. Executive, the hierarchical government units, for example, parliamentary form of government, the executive of chief executive of the executive is prime minister and so on, so that. And then the judiciary, from lower to apex or higher judiciary that makes the law. State monopolize, creates certain functions within its territory. State controls legitimate use of force within its territory to maintain law and order. Controls money at national and international level. Print currency, collect taxes, makes rules within its territory, law, regulations, etc. Controls much information within the territory. State has a population or human beings which live there, and the human beings have many associations, and among those associations the government is the most important one. And then comes the theories related to the origin of the state. The very first theory is the theory of the divine theory of origin of the state. Divine theory is oldest and simplest of all the theories because the belief that God himself is the creator of the state is the main theme and concept of the divine theory. So under this theory, if we sum it up into 3-4 important points. So number one, ruler of the state is nominated as king, and that king is nominated by God. So he is the deputy and the vicegerent of the God. Kingship is hereditary. Father dies, son becomes the next king, or any other relative of the king becomes king. And then king, by virtue of his appointment, is God. Deputy or agent, the king is the embodiment of the virtue and the reason. And then the king is the is not accountable to his people or any other worldly authority. He is answerable only to God. And then to obey a king is to obey God. This was the concept which was based on this hypothesis that God has appointed and selected that man to be the king. And this was very dogmatic, unscientific and superstitious idea, because autocratic state was not created by God itself as it was believed that God himself has created. Autocratic state or kings actually emerged when the population of the human beings increased and they divided into families, families to clans, clans became tribes, and tribes joined into one, and nation selected out of the chieftains as a king. So then this started. Otherwise, the tribal society was more democratic in its nature, as the critics believed to this theory. It always supported arbitrary rule. King and popes used the name of God to oppress the people and legalize their oppression. It was the combination, it was the alliance of clergy, and the monarchs. And then this idea is very strange and very, confusing, that good kings and bad kings. Now, in the history, there are so many examples of good and bad kings, but we don't know who has decided good and bad about them, because the judgment of the people was recorded or not recorded. It's still to be analyzed. Second theory is the theory of patriarchal origin of the state, that is based on this concept of the paternity. It was the main factor of in early family life. The descent of the family was traced by the name of the father, not by the members, female members of the family. Male was head of the family, and he was the ultimate source of the authority. This idea further spread, and then it reached on this, that man was head of the state, man was commander, man was judge, and women were confined into the walls of the house, and they were put to the households. So, principle of permanent marriage for establishing family was observed. Monogamy and polygamy was very common practice. No distinction between private and public life of an individual. Elder man decided and dissolved marriages without asking the wife and the husbands, and this was the most important point, that patriarch had authority to regulate orderly, worldly, mundane and religious affairs. Evolution. As far as concerned the evolution of this theory evolved in the rest of the development of the patriarchal society, and its evaluation is McLennan and his followers rejects the idea of the emergence of state out of patriarchal society. They believe that earliest time of society was matriarchal, and patriarch's theory is based on reason and common sense. Number 2. Next one is the matriarchal origin of the state. Number 1, McLennan, Morgan and Jenks. They are the prominent protagonists of this theory. They believe tribe is the primary unit of the human association. All the societies of the world were matriarchal in origin. Clans bring forth households, and households are ultimately broken into family units, and then tribe breaks into clans, and polyandry was the common feature. As far as concerns its evolution, usually it is believed by the theorists that all societies of the world were matriarchal in its origin. And in one paragraph or few sentences we can evaluate. The theory does not appeal to reason and common sense, that female were on the helms of the affairs and women were ruling janta, or they were doing every task which is not done by the man, so critics do not accept it. Transformation of family from matriarch to patriarch is not convincing argument. So the opponent of this theory, they reject, but McLennan, Morgan, they support this theory. The theory of the force origin of the state, number one, it based on this concept that rule of the strong over the weak. Force is alone responsible for the creation of the state. Wars with minor objectives of looting the weaker by the stronger tribes were taken place. Enforcing authority or police was established to maintain law as a law of as a need or necessity. Need for defense against strong enemy and lust to conquer the neighbors. No state can survive without use of force. The state owes its origin to human nature of aggression, warfare, violence and conquest, which is the instinct of human beings. Institutions of the state, kinship, religion and group consciousness actually evolved this theory based on the concept of force. Evolution, as far as evolution is concerned, is this, and then evaluation of this theory revolves around these points. Number one, obedience to the state was very important. Legitimacy of the government was accepted by every citizen. State is not an end in itself, and then state to promote virtue. Church prevailed over the affairs of the state. Individualist philosophers contended that survival of the fittest is the law of the state. Means that who were stronger they survived and who were poor they perished. Social contract theory mainly based on this 4-point state came into being as a result of the covenant. It was a result of some social contract and signed by the individuals, by the citizens, that they would pass life under this contract. And then covenant was signed at some prehistoric time among society. It has old and ancient history. Covenant turned into human society or state. With the passage of time, the population increased and the system of the government and governance changed. Present state is the continuity of the that social contract. Social contract theory, according to the Kautilya's Arthashastra or Arthashastra, people elected the Hindu king Manu. He gave this example in his book Arthashastra or Arthashastra. Evolution contractualists believe Hobbes, John Locke and Rousseau, they have sharp differences on all the 3 stages of evolution of the state. They are 3 stages of evolution. Number 1, stateless society, the state of nature, the social contract when people signed some agreement to live together, and civil society or state post social contract period when people began to think that we should live together, and they developed the the Charter of Rights and the Magna Carta and onward. Then this started. Now I will provide you the slide presentation, and in the presentation, at the end of the presentation, there is a comparison of all the 4 theories of the origin of the state. And then assignment. In the assignment you can see also the links of the YouTube about Thomas Hobbes, about Rousseau and about John Locke. So you will send me homework after this which I have assigned there. Okay, have a nice day. Bye.